Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast, where all things football are injected right to your veins. With your hosts, Matt Donnelly, Calvin Shoemake, and Jeff Mueller.
What is up, and welcome to a very special episode of our Dynasty Vipers Spotlight Series. We're going through all 32 teams, talking about everybody. We got a lot of awesome guests, and we're going to do a lot of thinking about the draft over the offseason. Once the calendar rolls into January, February, we start looking at our prospects, and we're looking at the talent and all those things. But we also really need to understand the teams that they are finding themselves planted in. So to do that, I'm bringing on a lot of great fantasy analysts, guys who know the game, but also a lot of guys who are fans of the team. So today, we're talking about the San Francisco 49ers. We got a lot of great guests. And Eric, if I could have, I would have had the Hood Hop song playing for you when we walked in here.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, let's go around. Let's just introduce. Tell me where we can find you, what you're working on. Eric, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Eric Crocker. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Eric_Crocker.
Awesome. I got two Jeffs here, so this is going to be tough to navigate. So Abercrombie.
Yeah, Jeff Abercrombie. I've been on Twitter at the Sofa Scout and big 49ers fan whole life. Working on a ambitious project that might not hit this year. I'm hoping for it, but I'm working on a way to marry both analytics and film. I'm partial to film, but I like to put the analytics in there to give it some context. So long-term project, but look for that.
Are you also negotiating like a peace treaty between the two sides? Is there like representatives from each side that are going to come in and?
We're going to need it, that's for sure, because I'm not an analytical guy. So
yeah, I got some good people on Twitter on both sides. So I got the right follows in there.
Nice. Very cool. And Jeff, last time I had a Dynasty Viper on, I meant to say fellow Dynasty Viper, but I accidentally said former Dynasty Viper. So I'm not going to call you a former Dynasty Viper.
I was fired. Didn't know it.
Yeah. I was like, he was surprised. Yeah, he didn't see it coming. But yeah, Jeff Mueller, nice to see you again.
You as well.
Where can the folks find you? What are you working on?
Oh, yeah, at JM Thrive PT. I'm working on, man, I know if anyone has been waiting for the Cortland Sutton thread and you're watching right now, I'm sorry. I'm gonna drop that tomorrow. Today was crazy busy. So this off season, I'm just doing a couple injury threads and then work with IDP magazine. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, let's hop in and talk about the San Francisco 49ers. So, Abercrombie, I'll toss it to you first. What was it like growing up or did you grow up a 49ers fan? Just tell me about your history with the team, how you became a fan, and kind of, bring us up to speed with your history there.
Yeah, I was indoctrinated as soon as I could get eyeballs on a TV. So, I actually had family who kind of had split allegiances all over the place, but my uncle got to me first and gave me a bunch of 49ers gear. And it didn't hurt that was the Steve Young, Jerry Rice years, which is, great fond memories. But when you start growing up and you're sort of in your middle school, high school years, going through Alex Smith and those kind of 2000s, it was pretty brutal. And lived in San Francisco through the Harbaugh years. Brutal Super Bowl loss. Love these Shanahan years. Brutal Super Bowl loss. So it's starting to hurt a little bit now. happy that we're there though. That's for sure.
Eric, what about your history with the team? How did you become a 49ers fan? And any fond memories of there's plenty to choose from.
Yeah, shoes. I became a fan. I was a mama's boy. So I remember just, as far back as I can remember, maybe I was 4 or 5 years old. And I remember asking my mom, like, Mom, what's your favorite football team? And she was like, 49ers. And I was like, all right, I'm a 49er fan. So that was how it started. I obviously have taken it to like an extreme level of fandomness, if that's a word. But yeah, man, like, you know, growing up in where I'm from, Stockton, California, like most people, you're either, well, there's about 3 teams that people kind of really like. You're either a 49er fan, a Raider fan, or a Cowboy fan. And I don't know where the Cowboys come from, but my family, you know, like Jeff's, like really split up. My dad, he's a Redskin fan. My brother, big time Dallas Cowboy fan. My uncle, who I really looked up to, big Cowboy fan. So luckily I ain't branch off that way because definitely since I can remember really watching the Niners, 49ers have had more success than Dallas. So yeah, that's how I became a fan. And then you would think it would kind of go away, me playing pro ball and being with the Jets and all that, but I was a fan then too. Like I remember getting the news, Michael Crabtree tore his Achilles, and I'm in the middle of OTAs, and I just remember being like, "Man, you guys see Michael Crabtree tore his ACL? I mean his Achilles?" And they're like so. I'm like, "Oh, okay, my bad." So yeah, the fandom it just never went away. Maybe I wasn't with the Jets long enough.
No, that's a fantastic story. Being there in Arkansas, do you run into many 49er fans in Arkansas?
No, not at all. Matter of fact, you know they're not really NFL fans. They love their Arkansas Razorbacks like no other. And that's kind of their version of an NFL team. And I mean, they love them. And but outside of that, most people around here, they're just not really like, they might like certain players or whatever, but not really a fan of an NFL team, which is crazy to me. Like,
yeah, I know. So there's a part of Louisiana that I always call South Arkansas, and I know there's a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans there. Like you said, I feel like Cowboys fans kind of can come from anywhere. It just doesn't matter. Yeah,
they are.
But we're not here to talk about the Cowboys. Jeff Mueller, how about you? I know you're from California, but how did you start to fall in love with the 49ers?
Yeah, my dad grew up in Indiana, but he moved over and to San Jose and got some season tickets to the 49ers just because he loved football. And ever since then, he followed the 49ers. When I was growing up, he grew me to be a 49ers fan. So my dad actually has a picture from his season ticket seats where Dwight Clark, he got his own picture of the catch, and then he had him sign it, which is pretty legit. Yeah, like he happened to just take a picture at that point. But yeah, so I always watched the Niners. We would go to some of the training camps. Yeah, just always been a fan.
Cool little story. You know, 49ers for a while, they were in training camp in Stockton. They did their training camp in my hometown. So as a kid, like in middle school, me, my brother, some of my friends, we would ride the city bus down to UOP and watch the 49ers practice with like, you know, Jerry Rice and Terrell Owens and Kevin Barlow. I mean, you know, just all those years. JJ Stokes. I used to get all their autographs. So that was matter of fact, one year Mariucci, I used to wear my brother's high school jersey, had my last name on it. So one time Mariucci was like, "Hey Crocker, did you get any good autographs?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "All right, just let me know if you need some help getting anybody else's." And I just remember, I'll never forget that, you know. So that was pretty cool.
So, you know, obviously a storied history. I mean, I kind of mentioned on Twitter, I grew up a Saints fan, and we sort of thought of ourselves as this 49ers rival. And I don't think the 49ers even halfway knew we existed. For whatever reason, we were in the NFC West. And I always remember just people like they wanted to, we didn't have the Falcons back as a rival back then. So it was always the 49ers and the Joe Montanas and the Steve Young, obviously. But we're in quite a different era today. And going into 2020, obviously a lot of injuries, but didn't go the way that you wanted them to go. Still, I feel like the 49ers fought about as well as you could have expected with the crazy list of IR candidates and things like that. The fact that Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard were leading your team for a lot of the year. But Eric, I'll just kick it back over to you. What was kind of the 2020? Was there like a defining moment or things that kind of jumped out about this season that stuck out to you as a fan?
No, it was tough. You know, after, you know, coming off of a Super Bowl loss where you were winning by 10 points with like 7 minutes left, you know, those moments can really come and go. And I think this season was, you know, exactly that. You know, you started off, you had a tough loss to Arizona, you know, and then you come week 2, you start dropping players like flies, you know, just left and right, guys just getting hurt. And it just, never really got better. You know, I had some good moments against some divisional teams, but aside from that, man, I mean, you know, you could say that you liked what Brandon Ayuk, you know, the season he had, or you know, Javon Kinlaw, but for the most part, there wasn't much to really be happy about. Really, it was maybe one of the more frustrating years because you could see that the team should be very talented, but I've never seen the injury bug hit like that. You know, at one point, 49ers had the most money on IR, and that was without, you know, even at that point, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo was on IR at that point, but still, like the number was like 80 million or something like that, just sitting
81.
on the bench. So, I mean, that was extremely tough seeing that. And yeah, man, you know, I feel bad for guys like, you know, Fred Warner, who is out there battling every single week and going hard and balling out. He ended up being an all-pro, you know, and I felt bad for Kyle Shanahan because he was trying to make do with whatever, even with everybody that was out. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like at one point, if you go through the defensive roster, at some point, pretty much everybody missed multiple games. Like, you know, and that's just not. It is one thing to miss like a couple guys here and there, but when you miss the amount of injuries, it's just like, what do you do? What do you do? So that was tough.
You sent us Quan Alexander and he got hurt like right away. So I don't know. Something about being a 49er this year. Just that's that hurt. Jeff Mueller, how about you? Just the 2020 season as a fan, what was it like?
Yeah, it was. I echo what Eric said. It was pretty tough throughout the year. I think the highest points were still being able to beat the Rams twice. That's always fun. And then beating Arizona. We lost to them the first game, but we beat them the second one. I think Eric touched on this too. I mean, our team was still able to fight, even though we had so many guys out, which is still, I mean, it's good to see. You always see these comments from fans who are like, oh, we just need to lose, get a better draft pick. It's like, no, these guys are pros. They want to win. They're competitors. They're not out there to lose, you know? So that was probably the high point of just seeing them still fight despite the turmoil, despite the troubled times that they went through this year.
Abercrombie, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're all 49ers fans. We all like every time another guy goes down, our heart breaks a little bit more. I mean, I guess I'd just kind of echo the high points, you know, somewhat in those division games where we still are competitive, we're still winning. And, you know, credit to the defense, I think primarily, you know, Robert Saleh just like really got those guys moving. Like every single one of them played hard. Like, I mean, I don't know if any other, what is it? Are we 6-10, 5-11 team has lost more coaches, you know, in a single offseason, right? Like how many coaches did we lose? And like we're a sub 500 team. And I think that just goes to show like it was definitely, you know, a talent, you know, not being able to make the field kind of thing, and not, you know, like a roster, a coaching, like everything's really good there. And, you know, honestly, we had guys stepping up to fill those shoes, like really admirably. I mean, whether it was Kendrick Bourne, like still doing his thing, or Jeff Wilson, or Kerry Hyder. You know, Bosa went down. Kerry Hyder was huge. Like he came out of nowhere. Was an IVP stalwart for a ton of people off the waiver wire. So, I mean, proud of the way they played. Glad we didn't tank. I definitely wish we had a top, you know, 8-10 pick here. You know, I think we'll get to that later, but I mean, you want a winning culture. You want them to win. I'm glad they didn't throw in the towel. That it definitely feels different than the previous year's losing seasons, whether that was Harbaugh or, you know, Tom Sula and, you know, the guys before. This losing season felt different. It still felt like they're a good team. They're going to play hard and they can come back next year and not be at the bottom.
Yeah, I just did a Bears preview, and Mike Singletary was he's up there interviewing for the DC job, and they were like, oh, they brought me back to the 49ers. But Eric, you mentioned Brandon Ayuk, and I know that's a guy that you like. I know you know study a lot of these guys, and obviously he broke out in a big way. I think out of all the players, there was so many injuries, but it seems like if you were going to pick a guy who won the season from a fantasy perspective, the best fantasy guy, it kind of seems like Brandon Ayuk might be the answer there. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he came in, he scored, 7 touchdowns in 12 games because he missed 4 games due to injury and COVID. So, you see 7. So the production was there from that standpoint. He had some rushing yards. He, obviously the receiving was there. The receptions was there. He had like 1 or 2, double digit catch games. So I know from that standpoint, that was really good. I think, and when he played, he was consistent for the most part until I want to say the last game he played in where Beathard threw 4 passes to the receivers. So, and, I think he had 1 catch or 2 catches that game. That wasn't much, but overall, I thought he was really good. The one player, it sucks that he didn't have a good year because I think he would have really killed it in fantasy was Raheem Mostert. He couldn't stay healthy, and that's very unfortunate because when he is on the field, dude's like electric, and I think he would have easily led the 49ers in fantasy points if he would have, just been healthier, just not missed as many games, Right. But again, that was the story of the 49ers season.
Abercrombie, what do you think? Is there anybody else that kind of jumps to mind?
No, I mean, I don't think anybody was healthy enough to really crack any fantasy. Like, I'll say, like, the running backs, when anybody was healthy, you could have plugged any of them in. So, like, nods to Jeff Wilson there, nod to McKinnon. I mean, he saved me through a stretch when I was down on my luck with running backs, and you could plug him in and get an RB2. So that, I mean, nods to them, but like on the season as a whole, nobody really did a great job. I mean, I think a little bit disappointing just all around. Even on the IDP side, I think the only one you could really point to as being like a huge surprise was Kerry Hyder. So I like IDP. I want to give a nod that way.
Yeah.
Because he was kind of a good breakout, but I mean, he's a free agent too. We might lose him. So
yeah, we're in an IDP league together, and I think that's hey, we love IDP around here, that's for sure. So but Jeff Muller, I mean, I know we've talked a lot about the 49ers, but is there anybody? I know you love Brandon Ayuk. Shout out to Jordan Reed for coming through a couple of games.
Yeah, out of necessity, I suppose. Jeff, before I forget, I want to ask you later your thoughts on seeing Buckner just dominate and then Armstead kind of struggle all year. So that'd be an interesting conversation. Yeah, I mean, Ayuk carried a ton of teams this year up until he was out. And then I know a couple of people who actually, Jeff Wilson, you grab him and plug and play, and he carried them in the playoffs. I think it was that time period right in the playoffs, first couple of rounds. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, a ton of people were banking on Jerick McKinnon, Jordan Reed when Kittle went out, some on Ross Dwelley, and they just didn't pan out. So just a rough year all around.
Yeah, and that's why I think we're just going to skip our next category here that we normally talk about, the disappointments, because I think this the biggest disappointment was the injuries. I mean, we had a lot of injuries in 49er land, unfortunately, and that led to guys that we normally can count on that just didn't really get a chance to. Is there one of those maybe that sticks out that you want to kind of highlight? Abercrombie, we'll start with you.
I mean, just the draft capital you had to spend on Kittle. I mean, in fact, he came back and played your championship weekend was awesome. I got him in there, and I won a ship with him, so I'm super happy. But he didn't return your value, and it's no fault of his, but he's an amazing player. But it's just like you said, everybody kind of didn't return value for you.
Yep, Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't really know much about fantasy. I can't help you. I was really big into fantasy, and I just kept losing, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to FanDuel. So I went more FanDuel route, or DraftKings or whatever. But so yeah, I couldn't help y'all from that standpoint.
Well, let's jump into the offseason then, because one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that the 49ers are actually $12 million under the salary cap, so there's a little bit of room. They do have a lot of unrestricted free agents, though. There's a lot of this is a crazy list to me, but Trent Williams, Richard Sherman, Solomon Thomas, Jaquiski Tart, Kyle Juszczyk, Tevin Coleman, whatever. But there's just a lot of names on that list, and there seems to be a lot of, even though there's $12 million under the cap, it might be hard to re-sign all of those guys, even coming back into this year. Jeff Mueller, what do you think about kind of where they are with the cap situation and their unrestricted free agents, things like that?
So, yeah, I've been looking at this for probably 3 weeks or so, and it's just another reason why I put a post out there where I think I would put Jimmy G coming back as our quarterback at around 10%. Only because I just keep looking, and I saw the look Jeff just gave. I'll be curious what he says. But, it's just looking at his cap space. It's hard because we're in that championship window, and he knows the system. Shanahan kind of trusts him based on actions, maybe doesn't. But you could save $24 million by dumping him, and you got guys like Tart. I don't think they'll bring Sherman back. I kind of hope they bring Trent Williams back. Just depends on how much he costs. Juszczyk, who knows? They have Josh Hokett out there. But K'Wan Williams, Kerry Hyder, Jason Verrett, who certainly earned a payday. Jeff Wilson is a cheap guy. Emmanuel Mosley. Like, these guys would be my top targets of bringing back. DJ Jones. And it's just, I have to assume they're looking at that $24 million and just saying, like, man, we could save $24 million. Jimmy G would cost us $2 million. We can give that $24 million to these guys and find a different quarterback to run the system.
Eric, I know me and you talked about this a little bit a couple weeks back, and you did feel like Jimmy G was coming back. What is that? Does the cap savings, does that influence you at all, or do you still think it's going to be Jimmy G?
I think from a fan standpoint, I would say, like, dude, ditch this dude, can't stay healthy, go with a rookie. A rookie could probably give you similar production. Like, that's what but I think, just judging off, what they say, I think they strongly believe that he'll come back and be the starter. Now, I don't think that they are 100% convinced that he's the guy. I don't think they're convinced at all that he's the guy. I think they just look at it like, we could do worse, right? And we've seen it. We've seen this year with all the injuries. It really came down to just poor quarterback play, and that was why the 49ers missed the playoffs, even with all the injuries that they had. So I think you look at it from that standpoint, bunch of injuries, guys out, they were still able to field a team that was extremely competitive and probably would have made probably a wild card spot if Garoppolo was healthy, throughout a full 16 games. But that's the big issue with me. He got the money, and since he signed the contract, he's been hurt for the better part of 2 out of the 3 seasons. So you know what you can do with him, but it's just like, is he going to be on the field? And if you go through another season banking on what you hope he'll do, but instead of what he's shown you to be, and again, I know injuries are fluky, but they keep happening, and he's the most important person on the team. Like, the quarterback is the most important person. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, well, Nick Bosa and all the, no, it's the quarterback. If you're not right there, you're not going to win many games. And, so I think he'll be there. I think they know what they have in him. There's a lot of, confidence there in the sense of him being able to just, produce and win games. But I don't think anybody is sold that he's just the guy. So if they could move on from him, they probably would. But, again, tight salary cap and stuff, it really makes sense what Jeff was saying. Like, dude, ditch that $24 million, take a very minimal cap hit. They gave him that flexibility to be able to let go of him. But it's just the quarterback position is too important, and I don't think they just have that guy to be able to make that move. So, if they were to cut Garoppolo before, because you would have to really cut him before free agency starts, who do you have? Like, I don't even think anybody else is under contract at quarterback, really, right? Like, I mean, there's no Becker, there's no Mullins. Mullins, I think, restricted free agent, but he has a messed up. He's getting Tommy John surgery on his elbow. So there's no, I want to say they just, Josh Johnson. All right, so okay,
Rosen too.
Rosen, they got Rosen in there.
Oh yeah,
they brought Rosen back.
I think so.
I know they signed him to the practice squad, right?
At the end of the year, they get practice squad, and then he got on the active roster because that's how they had to get him on there. But I don't know if he stayed there or not because it was like the end of the year. Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll give guys like a feature contract And I know they went with Josh Johnson. I know that much. But I mean, if Josh Johnson is the only other quarterback, with Garoppolo, like to me, there's no way that you get rid of him. Even though it makes a lot of sense, and I would do it. Like, dude, just get this dude out of here, man. Like, keep these players around. Let him go. Get some good players around. Go ahead, draft a rookie. Just start it now. And that's the way I would do it. But I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll keep him, and we'll figure out what they do from there. But Jimmy Garoppolo, I put it at 95%. He'll be a 49er week 1.
So does it hurt you a little? Does it hurt you a little bit as a defensive player to say that the quarterback is the most important guy? Is there a little bit of pain?
No, I mean, because you know what it is. Like, you can't win without a quarterback. You can, but you got to have a lot of luck, and that defense better be dominant, like very dominant. And we've seen it with the Bears. They made the playoffs with Mitchell Trubisky, but then you see this year where they look really weird. Playing. Made the playoffs again with weird at quarterback because they have a good defense and guys able to make plays, but you ain't going nowhere if the quarterback position is not right. So
some changeover. Potentially coming at quarterback. We'll see. Definitely some changeover. Jeff Abercrombie mentioned it a little bit earlier when it comes to the coaching staff. I saw that D'Amico Ryans is actually in now as defensive coordinator. And I guess it didn't look like they had an offensive coordinator last year, and now they're going to have Mike McDaniel. What do you guys think about those moves?
I like the D'Amico Ryans move. I think that's what a lot of people were really hoping for. It really makes sense from the standpoint of, he hasn't been a coach for a long time. He's really been an NFL coach since 2017. And, so only 4 years now. And that's really when, that's when this staff all got there. So he's been there the whole time. Now, obviously, he played 9-10 years in the NFL. So he has that experience, jumped straight into a coaching position. And then the way I look at it and why I thought he'd be kind of best for the job is, who else knows this defense better than him, right? He's been with the 49ers as long as Salah's been there. Salah was a first-time defensive coordinator, right? He's been there the whole time with Salah, going through his ups and downs and figuring out, different game plans and all this. I'm pretty sure that he didn't miss one meeting where they were going over game plan, scheming. It seems like the linebacker position was probably the most consistent position with the 49ers over the 4 years. They were always good. He's kind of the leader of that, the motivator behind that. So there's just a lot. And the way I look at it, linebackers typically know the front and the back end better than everybody because they're involved in different stunts and blitzes and how the defensive line works, but then they also have to know how coverage works behind them with the secondary. So I think those guys are kind of tailor-made for being able to run the defense. It seems like he's somebody that's extremely bright and people are really high on him. So I like the move. And obviously you never know if it's going to work out completely the way you want it to, especially with turnover. You might lose a bunch of guys through free agency. But, from a standpoint, I'm confident with the hiring though. That's what good teams do. They develop coaches and, promote them when they lose one. We've seen that with the Patriots for years. So.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because I read some really good things about Mike McDaniel as the OC. Some really Shanahan was really talking him up. Obviously, we know it's Shanahan's offense, but is there anything that you know about from there that you've heard about with Mike McDaniel that he might add to this offense?
Just his roots. I don't know too much about him and his sort of philosophies in general, and what I expect it to look very much the same. As far as offense, it's still sort of Shanahan's child there. So I think he can execute that really well. Like Eric was saying, I love these internal promotions. It really speaks to, I think, the organization, the faith they have top to bottom to everybody to execute their jobs well. You're just going to see people like I said about the players when people got hurt, you step in, you fill in your role and you do it well. And I think that's just kind of breeding a culture of excellence. So, we'll see where he goes. I'm going to be really fascinated. I still think, you're going to have Shanahan get almost all the credit there. The one other hire that I saw, Scangarello is back, I guess, for quarterbacks coach. And I think, the Jimmy G conversation is fascinating. I kind of raised my eyebrow for when, Jeff said a 10% chance and, Eric's here at a 95% chance and I'm here like split in the middle. I'm like, yeah, he could be back. Yeah, he can't be back. Yeah, I think they should trade up and draft a guy. But like, if they get a guy like Lance maybe or Wilson, like it's probably best that they sit a year. And so then you want Jimmy G back. But then, like you said, the money's there. But then Scangarello's coming back. And so maybe he's back to work with Jimmy G. So it's going to be a fascinating storyline there for sure. One of the ones I thought, though, I don't know, I was just kind of thinking as you guys were talking through the free agency stuff too, is what if they moved on from Jimmy G and they brought in a veteran, like maybe like Ryan Fitzpatrick, because that would be an exciting year, especially if they drafted somebody behind him. I don't know.
So I've thought about that. I've actually thought about that. So this is how I would do it if it was up to me. I will bring in somebody like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, again, the issue is you're already up against the cap, right? But what I would ideally be able to do if they can make things work or adjust some people's contracts, I would bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick with Jimmy Garoppolo. And what I would do is go through the entire, offseason OTAs with that. Once the draft comes, I'd see if I can move up for a young quarterback. And if I can move up, then I would try to move Garoppolo during the draft. If I can't move up, then worst case scenario, I have Garoppolo, I have Fitzpatrick. I feel a little bit more comfortable with the quarterback position going into the season.
Well, so this is going to be a fun conversation because I know all of you guys pay attention to the draft a lot. You know your prospects. So let's talk a little bit about the 49ers pick at 12 and maybe even some of the rest of the draft. So Muller, I'll give you the first word, but what do you hope they do here at 12 and the rest of the 2021 draft?
Well, one thought, I don't know if you know this, Crocker, if Parag, we have one of the best financial guys in the NFL. He always works his magic on dates of when we can move people, cut people, whatever. So one thing I meant to look at is when we can actually cut, when the deadline is to get rid of Jimmy without losing. We can save that 24 mil if that's after free agency opens, if that's after the draft. Because then if you can draft a rookie.
Yeah, well, I think that the issue is not even so much when, but it's like once you pass free agency, guys are on teams anyway. So, it's like you want to free up the money to keep the Verrett's and Hyders and, and Trent Williams and those guys. So it's like once you pass that time, you might as well just keep Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, true.
If you were bold enough to just say, look, sorry, Jimmy, we're going to just part ways, and that frees up that money for free agency. I mean, obviously that would be, awesome in the sense of being able to retain some of your guys, but terrible because who's the quarterback? And who's the quarterback throughout the whole offseason? And that kind of, that probably wouldn't look too good.
Yeah,
I'm looking it up now, but I'm pretty sure it's June 1st. I'll look that up. Talk about the draft a little bit though, and tell me what you think.
Yeah, so I've gone back and forth on this so much. So obviously the first option would be you have to assume outside of Kittle, Bosa, and Ayuk, everything's on the table to go get Deshaun Watson, right? That's like if you can get him, right?
Why do you say outside of Kittle, Bosa, and Ayuk?
I view them as foundational players, hard to replace.
I mean, I hear you, but nothing is harder to replace than the quarterback. So those are guys that you 100% don't want to get rid of. Like I don't want to touch these guys. These are our foundational pieces, but to get something, you're going to have to give something, whether it's draft, like a lot of draft picks or other. Maybe it might be a player that you're really high on, but it's like, well, we're really high on this guy. We're really high on this quarterback. So you're not just going to get away with not giving us anything in return. Maybe draft picks just work, but hey, that Bosa guy, he's looking really good. And I've seen a lot of people like, especially with the 49ers, upset about that, like where people be like, man, I would trade Bosa. And I would, like, obviously I wouldn't trade Bosa. I wouldn't want to. But if you were to tell me, hey, I'd give up the 12th overall pick, a first next year, and Bosa, and I get Watson,
and
I would have a really hard time not taking that. I'd have a really hard time. as good as Bosa is, that's just as good as Watson is at quarterback, and that's the more important position. That's just my opinion. I would never want to get rid of Bosa, but in that type of scenario, that's somebody, I have to at least consider it,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, outside of that, my other thoughts were if they are going to consider drafting a quarterback, I would think they would have to move up. Unless they're okay, unless Kyle Shanahan, obviously he knows what he's doing, unless he sees something in like a Mac Jones who maybe he falls. He probably will fall. But if you want, you're probably not going to get Justin Fields, T-Law definitely not, but like a Trey Lance, I would assume they would have to trade up. But
I can see Lance being there around, like, there are some QB needy teams, high up. You have to bank on some of them just kind of passing on a quarterback prospect. If you remember a few years back, 49ers, right? That was a team where I'm pretty sure a lot of people were like, hey, they need quarterback, but instead they went the route of drafting Solomon Thomas. Hopefully there's some teams that are drafting high that make those similar type of decisions that really mess them up moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Miss out on some guys. But, there are guys, Trey Lance, I like him, but, you'll see those QB needy teams. And then, it starts once you get by, the Broncos, the Panthers, those are teams where I could see them kind of really gobbling up a lot of those kind of leftover quarterbacks. And if I'm the 49ers and if it is someone like Trey Lance, who I really like, I would definitely try to move up in front of the Panthers. Like, I feel like you have to. I think that's the spot. Like, you got to get in front of the Panthers. You get in front of them, you'll land either Wilson or Lance. That's just, I think at that spot.
Well, and Dan Campbell was talking about how much he loves Matt Stafford. So it's like you look at pick 7 right ahead of Carolina. That might be a perfect spot to trade up to.
There's a lot of good spots. The Eagles could use a lot of help. They've got both Hurts and Wentz. You're not going to do another asset there. They need a ton of assets back. They're in terrible space. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunities to move up. There's also going to be a lot of other teams trying to move up. I think like New England is like a really interesting one behind us at 15. So that one's a tricky one. And then like you've got Washington. I don't know if they'll have the ammo to do it. I don't expect them to be as big players, but yeah, like I don't see Carolina moving up. I don't see Denver moving up. I don't see the New York Giants moving up, but those are all guys who could take somebody if they fell, especially if it's a guy like, I mean, you see different mocks and everybody has kind of their favorite second, third, fourth quarterbacks. Personally, I'm a big Zach Wilson fan if you could get him, but I think if there's one guy who has a chance to fall to us without having to trade up, it might be Trey Lance, just because he had one game this last college season, and might just get people kind of chasing the production that they kind of saw this year in other spots. So
what would a Shanahan offense look like with Trey Lance at quarterback?
I like it. See, I like Trey Lance. There's a lot of people that think like, oh, he's a running back or this and that. And I watch the film. I'm like, nah, like he makes all the throws. He throws the deep ball extremely well, plays on the center, turns his back to the defense, and then comes out of there, fires passes off. Obviously, when you're North Dakota State, your team is more talented a lot of times than the teams that you're playing against. So there were, a lot of times where his first read was just, however the play was dialed up, it was just there. And he did a good job of executing the play call. So, there's things he wasn't really asked to do, go through reads too much. Those are things that will probably be an adjustment for even really a lot of these younger guys coming out. But, even more so a guy like Trey Lance. The thing I hear a lot of people say is, oh, he needs to sit, or he needs years to develop. And my question is always why? Right? I mean, you look at the skill set, and that's what I go off of. I look at the skill set. I think he executed North Dakota State, whatever they're doing, to the highest degree, right? 28 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, ran for over 1,000 yards, threw for a good amount of yards. Like he did whatever they asked him to do, he did at the highest level, and still showed I can throw from far hash all the way outside the numbers to the far sideline. I can make every throw that you need. I can play from under center. You drop back, he's throwing bombs. He does everything you want. but for whatever reason, because he's only played 1 year, it's like, oh, he needs to sit a couple years. Now, that might be the case, but it might not. I mean, you don't know until you throw a guy in there and he plays, and then you see what he needs to work on. There was a lot to really like about his film. Very athletic. I think the only thing that's really holding him back from, really being like a solidified, like top 5 guy is the fact that he did only play a year. And there is some unknown. And he played 1 game this year and it wasn't that great, So I'm interested to see how he interviews with teams, how they go. I'm pretty sure he's going to get a lot of questions about, not playing this year. I'm interested to see how he, does at his pro day. Just throwing the ball. Sometimes it looks a little funny coming out of his hand, but he throws a good football. But sometimes it doesn't look the smoothest. But, I'm looking to see, what he's been doing, working on that since he's been out for a whole season. So there's a lot to like. I really like him. I think if you're the 49ers, that's probably a really good position for him to be in because, again, I've talked about how hard it would be to let go of Garoppolo. So you have Garoppolo, and now you have somebody behind him with elite traits. Not knowing if you're going to get the elite production from him, but he has the big arm. He is athletic. He makes all the throws. He is a passer. He's a passer. But you also have the threat of him running, and now he is like, hey, no rush. We got Garoppolo. He's a great leader. We don't really need you this year. Kind of like a lot of what we saw with the Chiefs and Mahomes, going there with Alex Smith, and they still went to the playoffs, and then it was like, all right, got to let you go. Let this young guy cook. So, I like the thought of Trey Lance.
Yeah, his athleticism is really what stands out there, and just his traits. I think where I say maybe he would sit a year, it's not that he only played a year. It's just that, and it's nothing against his program either. Like he did everything you could ask for, like Eric said. It's just, I look at players in like a problem solving lens and the types of problems they have to solve. And you didn't see a ton of NFL problems. Right. And what I mean by that is like, while you're under pressure in the collapsing pocket and trying to fit a tight window throw, it's his receivers weren't like NFL open, they were college open. Right. And I think he can do it because he shows every single trait. He shows pinpoint accuracy. He shows the arm strength to throw to the far hash. He shows mobility. He shows toughness. He shows poise in the pocket. He shows touch on the ball. He could chuck it really deep. Like everything you would want in a quarterback. Trey Lance is sort of a guy who can give it to you. It's just, will he put it all together? Right. And you'll never really know the answer to that. And, I think it's best if he's not forced to be like the savior of a team. But if he does put it all together year one and he's got to get on the field, like Justin Herbert, everybody thought Justin Herbert had to sit a little bit, right? And he put it all together on the field right away. Like you just couldn't stop the guy. And so, sometimes you get surprised like that. And I think if the 49ers walk away with a quarterback, I just don't know that they'll be unless they make a big move up. I don't think they'll get a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson. But I do think like if they come away with Trey Lance, I am going to be an extremely excited fan to see what's going to come for that future, right? I'm not excited about Jimmy Garoppolo in the future. I'm really excited about Trey Lance in the future.
That's what I was going to say is I don't know, like, I don't know if anybody is going to need to sit very long because all you really need to do is basically be what Jimmy Garoppolo was going to give you. I know Eric, we talked a little bit about it. I'm not sure Jimmy Garoppolo was getting to very much further than his first or second read to begin with. So we got a young guy that's not getting very far into his reads. Maybe it's not that bad. And, if you're going to be a guy learning in a system, I mean, having a guy like Kyle Shanahan to be your coach, your offense coordinator, calling plays for you, that seems like a perfect landing spot for a guy like Trey Lance.
Kyle definitely like he makes it easier for his quarterbacks. And obviously, I mean, we saw what he did with RG3 as a rookie. Even Kirk Cousins, when he stepped in, he played well as a rookie that year. He knows how to simplify the game for them. He just needs enough talent from that quarterback to be able to execute the things when it's not drawn up. I mean, when it doesn't play out exactly how he thought the play was going to play out, can you do something like off script a little bit? And that was one thing that Garoppolo has struggled with for the most part throughout his time with the Niners. Definitely something that Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard, they struggled big time with those things. And you saw a lot of inconsistencies there. Like he simplified, like Nick Mullins, it really isn't somebody that really should be playing, but Kyle was able to make him at least look like an NFL quarterback, even with his limitations. Can't really move, weenie arm, right? Just stands there, like has no pocket awareness whatsoever, and still Kyle, for the most part, made him look like a serviceable quarterback. Especially at times he had a couple of good games. So I think if you're talking about giving him someone that has more talent than those guys, I definitely could see it working out. And again, like Jeff said, hopefully it is somebody that doesn't have to play right away. But God forbid Garoppolo goes down and somebody like Trey Lance has to step in. I think he'll be fine. I think I'm higher on him than I was Jalen Hurts coming out, and we saw even Jalen Hurts able to kind of piece together some good moments.
His threshold for getting in there and sort of starting will be his ability to avoid mistakes, because the defense, as long as it can play at the same level, was good enough to keep the 49ers in games. And when the mistakes were made, that's when they lost, right? And so that's where I think like it's just going to take a little bit of time. It's not anything about his talent. It's not anything about the scheme or his ability to execute it. It's just, understanding the NFL game, the NFL speed, the NFL reads, like, and honestly, I would be okay for him taking his lumps and learning, as long as take it more of like a Josh Allen approach rather than a Tua approach. You don't want to not saying that what Miami's doing is wrong, but like you have to give the guy a little bit of
terrible.
Yeah, you got to give the guy a little bit of leeway to learn, right?
This guy every time because he just, what I'm saying? Like, no, you're right. You're right to say that. They're wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes in the locker room there, and how they're giving to a confidence, right? All I'm saying is like you got to give the guy ability to make mistakes and learn. And if that's kind of what happens next season, and you don't make it to the playoffs, you're 8-8. The defense probably takes a step back. He makes a little bit of mistakes, but then he starts to, he has to play a little hero ball to kind of, take some big shots, get him back in there, get the learning experience. I'd be okay with that, because again, like what you're doing is you're investing in the future.
Yeah, Jeff Muller, I want to bring you back in here because I know you do a lot of work on a lot of these running backs, a lot of these wide receivers, and I know there's a lot of talk about potentially the perfect fits at running back for Kyle Shanahan for this 49ers offense. I don't expect that to be, something that go early, but I'm just kind of curious as if you had to pick out 2 or 3 guys, whether it's a running back, whether it's a wide receiver, who are some skill position guys that you'd be looking at in the draft for them to take?
Ooh. Well, yeah, I definitely think, I mean, not even just looking at the free agency list, but I definitely think we need another wide receiver who could step in case Debo keeps struggling with injuries. That would be a huge loss if he keeps getting injured. But I just barely plugged in. You guys can hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry about that. One running back I would absolutely love, just because I know we won't get ETN. Najee or Javonte Williams would be fantastic, but Kenneth Gainwell I think would fit the system perfectly. I've seen a couple people say he has a similar run style, and you guys would probably know way better than I would, just from a film perspective. But they've said he runs similar to Mostert and even Matt Breida, and would be a great system fit. I would love Kenneth Gainwell.
Oh yeah. Have you looked at Michael Carter at all? You say Javonte Williams.
Yes, he's the second guy who. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah, Gainwell or Michael Carter. That'd be fantastic. What do you think for a wide receiver?
I think it depends on what we do in the offseason. So, are we going to get Bourne back? That's a big deal. If we do, we're not really losing any pieces of significance. We gotta imagine, we're not a 3-deep wide receiver scheme, 4-deep scheme. I'd probably, it's a great class, so I'd spend a kind of an early day 3 pick, maybe a late day 2 pick. I'm trying to figure out who would all be there at that time, because and really what we would even want, because I like guys that could probably stretch the field, play out of the slot, do good yak, You've got guys like Diami Brown, right? But he'll probably go a little bit early. Yeah, I don't know. And he's not he's not the physical guy that like Shanahan, wants to like catch the ball and just sort of like run through people. So
one guy I kind of view as like a Debo light is Amari Rodgers from Clemson.
Good slot.
Yeah.
So, Eric, we know that you would not want them to draft Jamar Chase based on your Twitter. We know how much you hate him, but
I would, I wouldn't mind it. He's just not my favorite, but I wouldn't. I think there's some good things that he does that could add to the 49ers, receiving core, especially being kind of a deep threat that's really good with contested catches. That's something that the 49ers kind of lack right now, or at least I wouldn't even know because they don't throw the ball down the field with the quarterbacks they have. But when I look at the receiver position, it is definitely something that needs to be addressed. Like Jeff said, 49ers will be missing likely, Kendrick Bourne. And if you're out on him, I mean, you have Richie James, who, I like Richie James, but your third receiver, I don't know. I don't know.
Juwan
Debo,
Jennings.
Juwan Jennings, I don't know. I would, Jalen Hurd, I don't know. So it would be nice to see them do something to kind of really like give us a little bit more confidence at that, wide receiver 3 spot, and maybe even a new returner as well. I think when I look at the, especially like the 12th overall pick, I would probably lean cornerback. You see right now, like, everybody's a free agent in the secondary except for Ward and
Tim Harris, I think.
Yeah, like, what I'm saying? I don't like Tim Harris. So, the Witherspoon, free agent, Mosley, restricted free agent, Sherman, free agent, Verrett, free agent, Williams, Kawhi Williams, free agent. So, Tart, free agent. So, the 49ers secondary, it definitely needs to be addressed. Corner definitely needs to be addressed. They haven't really put a whole lot of resources, especially in the sense of draft capital, high draft capital into the cornerback position. They tried to do little things to kind of cheat it and get around it by like drafting. Why am I drawing the blank on his name right now? Number 33.
Tarvarius Moore.
Tarvarius Moore. They drafted Tarvarius Moore to be a cornerback. And then when I watched him play, first of all, he has no cornerback film ever, right? Like not even going back to junior college. Like he was a single high safety. Then he was a cover 4 safety at was it Missouri? What was the school?
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those like it was like Missouri or something like that. But he was a cover 4 safety at the college or Southern Miss, I think. Southern Miss. Cover 4 safety there. And then it's like, oh no, he ran 4.3 at his pro day, so we're just gonna put him at cornerback because he has long arms and stuff. But I watched him, I'm like, man, everything about this guy, the way he moves, everything says safety, screams safety to me. So that didn't work out. They tried to kind of cheat the process. I think you need to put a little bit more resources, especially high draft capital into the cornerback position, so that you don't have as much up and down plays they've had. Even with guys like, Ahkello Witherspoon. I think he has like a high ceiling, a bunch of talent, and he's shown it in stretches, but just a lot of inconsistency. And a lot of times you get that from guys that are more mid-round guys. At pick 12, I could see them going Farley or, some people think he's going to go top 10. Same thing with Surtain. But both of those guys would fit, especially what the 49ers have been doing if Ryan's, adopts that type of scheme. J.C. Horn. Really like J.C. Horn, physical, aggressive guy, scrappy, takes on a lot of challenge, takes on a lot of responsibility with what they asked him to do at South Carolina. So he's another guy I really like. So, if we're talking about, okay, all the quarterbacks are gone and, one of those guys are there, I'm probably going that route because 49ers really need that.
Eric, Jeff, I have a quick question for you guys. So, maybe Asante Samuel Jr. in the second or something, but I don't think, John Lynch and Shanahan, like you said, Eric, they don't devote a lot of capital to the cornerback position. They tend to build in the trenches, use pressure to make their deep backs look better. Do you think they would put a top 12? Would they use 12 on a cornerback, do you think? Or do you think that, maybe let Trent Williams walk, spend a couple in the quarterback, do an offensive tackle because it's a great offensive tackle class.
I think if you get Trent Williams back, you would hope to get like a hitter back, and then they would probably bring back like Blair for a 1-year contract, right? Because he had his injury, he's coming off of that, missed his whole year. I think you have Bosa coming back, so and then Ford with whatever's going on with him, I don't know, but I would assume that if you're able to say, hey, week 1 we got Bosa, Ford, Hyder, Blair. I don't know if they would really address or put a lot of capital into the defensive end position. Now, if you lose Hyder, you lose Blair, you lose D4 because maybe he retires. Some people are kind of speculating that. Then edge might need to be a priority, but I don't think you chase it. I don't know how good this edge class is. So do you just draft the edge guy because that might be a need, especially at 12 when you're picking that high? Or do you take somebody who can be more of an impact player right away and he's higher, on your draft board than any edge player? And if that's the case, then maybe I do go corner. I see the question about are any of the corners better than Okudah or Henderson last year? I've watched a good amount of them, but I don't think I've watched enough to determine that. But just off the top of my head, what I've seen so far and what I remember from the guys last year, which obviously I remember a lot, I would say that Henderson and Okudah are better prospects than these guys. But I do think that these guys can be really good in the NFL, especially in the right scheme. Where like Okudah's not in the right scheme for him. But if he was drafted to the 49ers, he would kill. He'd be an amazing cornerback in that type of scheme. He just didn't fit what the Lions were asking him to do. But these corners, I think that they can play very well. Surtain, you plug him into this, or any of those three guys, Farley or Horn. I think they play extremely well in what the 49ers do. So, maybe not as high of prospects in my opinion, but still think you get really good results if you draft one of those guys at 12.
Yeah, I love that.
I think the draft capital will get a boost too and might change their plan because I was reading this morning they're getting 2 picks for losing Robert Saleh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compensatory picks, 3rd rounders, and then 1 more for losing Martin Mayhew, right? Since he got the GM title.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 3 extra picks in the 3rd round.
Are those this year or next year?
They're all
next year. Yeah.
They're all Saleh's is this year. One for Saleh this year, 1 for Saleh next year, and then the year after that, Mayhew. But you still have it just in case if you need to, trade up or whatever. Like you still have the picks to be able to move them. So
yeah. No, that's great. And this is all just speaking of Saleh, one of the things that I saw is it looked like Richard Sherman and Tart and Williams actually, there was a beat writer there in San Francisco that thought that they may follow him to New York. So there could be a need to draft a cornerback, upgrade that secondary early. Eric, you said something about Richard Sherman on a podcast. I don't remember when it was, but you talked about him being an announcer, and that there's no one else in the league I want as an announcer now more than I want Richard Sherman. He would be awesome.
Yeah, somebody had said like, oh, Richard Sherman, like, he said he has a really good mind for the game. He needs to be a coach, and I was thinking, if I'm Richard Sherman, I'm not being a coach. Like, you have all these long hours, you know what I'm saying? Like, your job is always at risk, all that type of stuff. He's already been, playing for, 10 years, or 11 years, whatever it's been, spending all those long hours, training camps, all that. Rich Sherman made for TV, he needs to be on, ESPN NFL Countdown or, something like that, where they're going to pay him good money to, fly out and talk about some NFL football, every Saturday or every Sunday. If I'm him, that's what I would do. I would be on TV. Now, maybe he can do what, like a Talib or any of these other guys in the booth, but I don't really want him in the booth. Like, I think like pregame or post game, I think that would be something where he gives his analysis on games, how he views it. But he might be good in the booth too. I mean, that might be something to really see.
Whatever he wants
the
to
minority
do.
on this, but I loved what Talib did. I mean, it was different. It was not exactly what most color commentaries are, but I thought he was awesome. I liked what he added to that broadcast. and Sherman I think would be awesome. But look,
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep these at like right about an hour, so I want to give you guys an exit. I'm making an executive decision. We're going to do a part 2 where we'll talk about some of the fantasy football stuff. This was amazing. Like listening to you guys talk about the draft, talk about the 49ers. It's just, it's exciting to hear you guys who know the game, talk about your team, the team you love. So, Jeff, I'll start with you. Abercrombie, Sofa Scout. Tell us, just plug what you're doing one last time before we get out of here.
Yeah, like I said at the top of the show, I'm on Twitter. Right now, I'm trying to marry. I'm a film guy. I love watching how athletes, solve the problems on the field. That problem solving paradigm is my game, and I try to look at the holistic view. And so that's the lens that I approach players at. I look at offense, I look at defense, and at least on the offensive side, I understand that analytics plays a big role. And so what I'm trying to do is figure out a way that you marry those two together into some level of a model that can kind of bring people, that can kind of bring in a better way to kind of approach both sides of the coin there.
Mueller. It's not Mueller, it's Mueller. My bad.
That's fine. Yeah, just like I said before, doing injury threads. I'm trying to touch on all the guys like Saquon. Miles Sanders has an injury history. Doing Cortland Sutton here, OBJ. Just guys who are injured and what to expect, what to do with them, especially in dynasty leagues. And then working on some injury profiles for Ray GQ over at Destination Devi and for Dynasty Vipers in the IDP magazine.
Eric, you got the building done in Arkansas there yet?
Nah, but it needs to be because my wife's right here. I was just talking to my wife, I'm maxed out with how many kids I can fit in the building I'm in right now with my younger group, with the middle school kids. I can't even add anybody else. So definitely I messaged my guy who's, and talked to him about, hey, we need to get a move on this, expanding this and getting a bigger building. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. That's something that'll be really big for me for the next couple of months, a big investment, but something that'll really pay off here in Arkansas. Weird, man. They don't have any sports athletic trainers here. And I've never seen that, especially coming from California. They're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They're like 7-Elevens on the corner. But out here, none. Between here and Little Rock, that's like an hour and a half away. So I got the whole market to myself. Now I just need to get a bigger space for it.
Man, I can't wait to see the picture. And you're totally right. I mean, I'm not that far from you here in Louisiana, and it's the same thing here. I've got a 12-year-old who plays baseball, wants to try to do it at a high level, and it's hard to find him the right training staff. So I may have to move up to Fayetteville, and
don't go to Fayetteville because I'm like 5 hours from Fayetteville.
Oh, my bad. That was
the
first Arkansas city I thought of.
I'm about 45 minutes from Louisiana, so I'm closer to you than Fayetteville.
Yeah. Hey, question here. The Dynasty Vipers asked, how can we make this possible? Is there anything we can do to help you?
With the gym thing?
Yeah, just anything. Is there anything you can think of that we can help you? If you do, definitely let us know.
If I do, I'll definitely let you guys know. I appreciate that.
Well, for the Sofa Scout, for JM Thrive PT, for Eric Crocker, for the Dynasty Vipers, really appreciate you guys tuning in. And we will have a part 2 where we'll talk about the fantasy football side. We'll get nerdy and yeah. See ya.